I paid for it, therefore I must play it. How many times have you said that exact thing to yourself as you continue to waste your life playing some of the most boring, lackluster, blatant cash grabs excuses for video games ever conceived? Terrible games you paid money for feel like ball and chains you got tricked into putting on. As you think to yourself, God damn, I'm not having the slightest bit of fun right now, but on the other hand, I paid a lot of money for this piece of shit, so I might as well get my money's worth. This has happened to me time and time again, yet thankfully, there were times I snapped out of it when I just had to realize that these games just aren't worth my time. Today, I'm going to recollect 5 times this exact thing took place, so once again, here are 5 JRPGs I couldn't stand to finish for whatever reason. And yes, this is in fact a part 2, so if you want to check out part 1, you can do so right up here. I wanted to throw in a little twist this time, so I'm going to be going from what I think are the least controversial picks to the most how dare you, I'm now going to send death threats, hunt you down and kill you type of controversial picks. And assuming I don't piss you off too much with my takes in this video, please consider subscribing for more gaming content just like this. It would really help me out a lot, and let's begin. Now, one of the more niche series of RPGs I'm really into is the Hyperdimension Neptunia series. This series isn't exactly known for producing high-quality games, but I do think they did strike gold on a couple of games in the series, namely Mark II, the second game. And I did actually drop the first game in the series because it sucks ass, but I think it's got some amount of charm to it at the very least. So it's not the one I want to talk about today. No, the one that genuinely pissed me off is a relatively recent release. That being Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters. You ever play a game and just feel like you've been completely and utterly disrespected? That somebody had the gall to think that I would find anything in this game even slightly entertaining is disrespectful to me, my money, and my time. This is the only game on this list that straight up just doesn't work. The frame rate, even on a PS5, is so abysmal that it's impossible to tell what's going on half the time. There's nothing to indicate when things are happening in this game. Enemies don't have stagger animations when they're hit. Attacks have no impact. There are no sound effects. Hitting enemies feels like you're hitting nothing. I would have kind of forgiven the stupid combat mechanics if there were some satisfying sound effects present whenever I do things, but no. When you hit something with a big hammer in a video game, you typically want to hear something like this. Instead, this is what we get. Fucking nothing. And when there are sound effects, they're delayed. Let me say that again. Sound effects are delayed. So you summon a giant pillar of fire and then you hear the flames. What is this? I would have been more forgiving if this was their first attempt at an action game, but they made 4 Goddesses Online like 8 years ago, and that game was pretty fun even with the occasional crashes on PS4. So what exactly happened here? Now, you'd think that with the lack of sound effects, that would mean that this game's pretty quiet. No? Oh no. Oh, no. That's quite the opposite, in fact. Party members never shut up in this game. They have to make some dumbass comments every 3 seconds. It's infuriating. They comment on everything. You open a map, comment. You open the menu, comment. You walk 1 millimeter per second slower than them, so they end up passing you, comment. Nothing. Literally nothing happens. Oh, you bet your sweet ass they're gonna comment on that too. And the cherry on top of this shit show is the so-called dungeons, which are literally made up of copy and paste sections every time. So every dungeon looks the same. And even if there's, say, like a switch or something that served some purpose in one dungeon, they would copy and paste that same switch in the other dungeon, knowing full well it does nothing in this one. I couldn't think of anything lazier if I tried. It's embarrassing. And when I finally reached the dungeon that looked somewhat unique in the 8 hours that I played, I thought, maybe the game's about to start getting good. That was just the entrance. The actual dungeon looks like this. And it's filled to the brim with puzzles aimed at literal 2-year-olds. You'd have to be pretty brain dead if you find any of this stuff entertaining. Now, at one point in my life, I remember looking at this game and thinking, wow, this game looks like it will be a love letter to anyone who enjoyed Mark II. But if anything, all it is a massive slap in the face to anyone who enjoyed that game. They knew full well that Mark II had an audience, and they decided to capitalize on that by providing an unfinished game, knowing that a lot of us would still end up giving it a chance, biting the bullet, and buying it. Nothing in this game is worth your time. Even the story is a mere parody of what the series used to be. If you think I'm being too hard on this game, please remember, there is a world where I could have bought this game at full price, that being $50 goddamn dollars. I bought it at $15, which is still a goddamn scam. You should be paying me to play this piece of shit. Now, one of my 2025 resolutions was for me to start trying to be a bit more positive when it comes to let's say less than ideal video games. You know, focus more on what said games do right instead of what they don't. But I have to say, and I mean no ill will when I say this, I don't think Idea Factory, Compile Heart, or whoever's in charge of this abomination are going to survive for much longer. They used to have some amount of standards, but now they're clearly cutting not just corners, but half the goddamn cookie. Even the most diehard of Neptunia fans are eventually going to wake up and smell the bullshit. But as for me, I'm done with Neptunia. Although to be more accurate, it feels more like Neptunia is done with us. Some of us just haven't realized it yet, and that's why they keep making more abominations today. Unlike Neptunia, I actually paid full price for this next game, so I'm somehow even more pissed. Second game on this list is Valkyrie Elysium. If we're talking about games that are just blatant slaps in the face to fans of a franchise, I gotta talk about this one. Valkyrie Elysium is the newest entry into the Valkyrie Profile series, none of which I actually played extensively. I played a bit of the second one a long time ago, but even then, I could tell right away that it was a game worthy of praise and one I would enjoy a lot if I played today. Can't say the same for this one. Everything that made Valkyrie Profile what it was is nowhere to be found here. Not the battle system, not the music, not anything. Instead, they opted to make a mediocre action game with no original ideas as far as the eye can see. It's not that the game is bad per se, unlike the first entry on this list, it's just very uninspired. I got bored of it really quickly. The basic gameplay loop, if you can even call it that, is that you pick a mission, fight the same enemies over and over again, go back to your hub, and talk to your dear old daddy Odin, who, let's be real, is going to end up being this game's main antagonist and final boss, because who else is in this game? Nobody. Let me fact check that real quick. Yep, he is. Oh, look at that. He's got a pair of wings now. Who could have seen this coming? The gameplay loop would have been fine if there was, say, a skill tree to get invested in this game or something. But no. You don't get a skill tree in this game. You get a skill stem. Look at this shit. Why even have one at that point? So yeah, after playing for about 8 hours, I decided to swallow my pride, turn this shit off, and admit that I threw a whole $60 down the drain. Even if you were on board with this whole new change in direction this series took, there are plenty of other action games out there that are just straight up better than this one in almost every way. So just stay away from this one. It's absolutely not worth your time. Speaking of action games though, the next 3 entries in this video are games a lot of people actually like, so don't get your panties in a bunch. Reminder that these are just opinions. But yeah, one action game series people often recommend is the Nier series, which features 2 games, Nier Replicant and Nier Automata. I played Automata first. I thought it was alright. I don't really get the hype behind it, but I actually did finish this one, so I know. The one I actually couldn't stand to finish is this one, the remaster of the first game. Nier Replicant Ver, whatever the fuck. Let me just say that no, I don't think this game is bad. And none of these next 3 games are bad, actually. They got a lot of good points too. Like, if you've ever experienced this game's second playthrough, you know how much of a gut punch it is. Notice what I said right there, second playthrough? That would imply that I actually did finish this game, right? But oh no. That's the thing with this game. It loves to waste your time. That applies to absolutely everything. Whether it's the fact that you're locked out of most weapons for the entire first half of the game, whether it's the lackluster combat and lack of enemy variety, whether it's side activities like farming or fishing taking forever, and whether it's the fact that they have you walk from one end of the world to the other and then back for some dumb side quest because they didn't bother adding a fast travel feature, this game can't help but drain your time and energy at every turn. But most of all, the most egregious example of this is that this game expects you to replay it 4 whole times just to get the entire experience. And let me just say, how dare you? How dare you think you're so important enough for me to waste my life playing you 4 whole times just to get the entire experience? Nier Automata pissed me off enough having to replay it once as 9S, who can't fight for shit by the way. Then this asshole comes along and says beat me 4 goddamn times. With all due respect, piss off. So after playing through it about 2 or 3 times, clocking it about 26 hours, I said screw it, I'm not wasting any more time on this bullshit. Number 4 on the list is one I've played fairly recently. I dropped this one about like 2 months ago because it was just so stupidly boring I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm of course talking about Fantasy XVI. God, what a disappointment. I really wanted to like this one because just look at this gameplay. It just looks so cool. It looks so fun. Sadly, that's all it has to offer, looking cool. The actual gameplay mechanics are so bare bones, it's insulting. What's more, you don't even need to engage with said mechanics. I swear, one time my 2-year-old niece and nephew walked in on me in the middle of a fight with like 1,000 dudes, blocking the screen, screaming, wreaking havoc and whatnot. You know how toddlers are. Yet somehow I was able to win without seeing or hearing what was going on in the game. I should not be able to do that. Now, I hate to be that guy, but don't you guys think that maybe, just maybe, this game would have been 1,000 times better if they just stuck with traditional turn-based combat? Turn-based battle systems are normally accompanied by in-depth customization to your gameplay experience, which God knows this game could use a lot more of. But sadly, they opted for the mash buttons until things start dying approach to combat, which is just riveting. I see a lot of people praising the game's soundtrack, but I just don't get it. It does nothing for me. I can't remember a single track I've heard thus far. Clyde's voice actor killed it though. If there's one thing in this game that stood out to me, it's that. Also, you ever play a game and get the sense that it just loves the smell of its own farts? That's the sense I got with this one. Similar to Nier Replicant, this game just loves to waste your time. Even the most minor of tasks are given the same amount of attention that main story stuff is given, leading to the most prominent complaint people have with 16, being that playing the main story often feels like you're still doing side quests, and I absolutely agree. And that takes up the majority of this game, so you end up going through 4 hours of boring stuff, then you get 20 minutes of an incredibly epic boss fight, credit where credit is due, and then another 4 hours of boring stuff. What's more, even when stuff does start to happen in the plot, it feels like the game is more preoccupied with showing us how edgy it can be rather than trying to tell us an actual engaging story. At every turn, all you see and hear is death, despair, sex, and more sex. Ooh, we're hiding out in the brothel. We can hear people moaning through the walls. Are you enjoying yourself yet? Okay, sure, but have you considered not leaving the boss at half health whenever I restart the fight? Have you considered doing that? Or do you think showing me a pair of titties is gonna blind me to all the problems this game has? I see people with similar complaints to mine saying that this game's ending is actually worth trudging through it, but after playing past the second time skip, so say around 25 hours, I think I've had enough. Safe to say that this game is just not for me. So, but who knows? I might be bored one day and decide to come back to it. So based on what I've said so far, let me know if that's something I should do. The last game on this list will of course be the most controversial. I think I'm the only JRPG fan alive who does not enjoy this one, and for good reason. I don't think this game's bad in the slightest. It's certainly the best one out of this lineup of trash. I'm of course talking about one of the greats of our time, Dragon Quest XI. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I know it's a great game. I just could not for the life of me get into this one. I am very clearly not the target demographic they had in mind because this game does nothing for me. This feels like a 90s JRPG made in the 21st century, and from what I understand, that is exactly what they were going for. It's supposed to be JRPG comfort food, as I've heard some people say. So me, being someone born in the early 2000s, a Zoomer, if you will, the best word I can use to describe this game is basic. The gameplay is basic. The story is basic. The soundtrack ranges from basic to straight up just annoying. This game looks great, I will give it that, but then again, graphics are the least of my concerns when it comes to video games. I'm more of an art style kind of guy. And with all due respect to Akira Toriyama, may he rest in peace, I just don't jive with the big forehead look. I'm sorry. Everything just looks so childish and goofy. It's not my vibe. I do like some of the enemy animations at least. As for the story, well, it's filled to the brim with your typical 90s JRPG affairs, with the MC being some kind of chosen one, his village getting burned down, getting imprisoned by elite soldiers, then breaking out, becoming a fugitive, going from town to town, solving people's problems. It's all been there, done that territory. Not to mention that in the 15 or so hours that I played, the combat doesn't really do anything interesting. Again, it's just your typical turn-based RPG with no unique mechanics to differentiate it from other RPGs of its kind. Maybe the game opens up and starts getting better from where I'm at, but at the same time, I'm sorry, but you can't subject me to mediocre storytelling and mediocre gameplay for 15 whole hours for the game to start getting good. At least get one of the two right. A good example of this is Yakuza Like a Dragon, where the first 10 hours of gameplay are literally just mashing X until you win, but where the story was actually interesting enough for me to deal with it until the gameplay starts getting interesting too. It's not enough for games to just be good nowadays. You gotta throw something unique into the mix for your game to stand out among the rest and actually be worth playing. I'm gonna avoid giving examples of this right now because this actually ties in wonderfully with the next video I'm working on, where I'm going to be sharing 5 of the most unique JRPGs I've ever played, whether that be innovations in gameplay, story, whatever. So subscribe and stay tuned for that if you're interested. So yeah, I'm sorry, mainstream JRPG fans, I have failed you, but for what it's worth, out of all these games I listed, Dragon Quest XI is the one I'm most likely going to go back to and giving another chance. All I have to do is one day find myself bored enough to stomach looking at some massive foreheads. So there we go, 5 JRPGs I couldn't stand to finish once again. Believe it or not, I have more in stock for another one of these videos, so let me know if you enjoyed and I'll get right on that. Regardless, thank you for watching, subscribe if you don't want to miss what's to come, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.